It is a therapy edition of Locked On Guardians. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off and let it all out. So hang with us for the next half hour, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, however long you got. We're going to get you through this. We're going to get through it together. It's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jeff Ellis. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. Before being the host of said podcast, I was a lead draft and prospect writer at Scout and 24/7, and I got my start on Indians Prospect Insider, which became Indians Baseball Insider, which became Indians Guardian Insider, where Justin now works. Why don't you tell him everything else you've done?
Yes, I am Justin Latta, the co-host of Locked On Guardians with Jeff. We did cross paths sort of at Indians Baseball Prospect, Guardians Baseball Prospect Insider, whatever we're calling it these days. I've been at the Willoughby News Herald, Lorain Morning Journal, ESPN Sweet Spot, Burning River Baseball, all sorts of places where people decided to let me write and where I turned into a baseball fanatic and a sap just like the rest of you. And now we're all sitting here with a big hole in our hearts for the next several months. But it's okay because we're still going to be here. We're going to talk about things. It's like the Friends theme. We'll be there for you. Yeah. At some point this winter, we won't be there for you every day, but we'll still be there for you most days. So.
I feel like the one who's pushed in the fountain. I'm feeling a little like exposed and wet right now after all this rain, right? Maybe a really awkward transition, but I feel like the rain played out exactly how we feared it would.
Yeah, I would say so. Actually, if you think about it, the rain kind of screwed Cleveland twice. I didn't think about this before. It's gonna hurt even more after I say this. So if you're listening, I'd recommend sitting down. Maybe you already thought about this, but actually our mutual buddy Tony Lastoria, who is still the owner of Guardians Baseball Insider, tweeted this. Had the rain not pushed Game 2 from Thursday to Friday last week, today, Game 5, Tuesday, would have been Shane Bieber's normal day to start. That's not going to make anybody feel better. But it's true. No. I didn't even think about that until he tweeted. I was like, wow, yeah, Bieber would have been on normal rest. He could have started Game 5.
But, I'll say, I'm going to take the non-popular point of view and be like, I know everyone's focused on, like, Bieber didn't play, this and that. Like, I don't know if it changes the outcome. They only got one run. They got the bases loaded and got one run with one out and got one run. I remember when they got runners at first and second with nobody out and couldn't advance them. It was the continued story that we've seen for a lot of this playoffs. They just couldn't seem to string enough together. I've referred to this offense's death by 10,000 paper cuts. They had more base runners in this series. Both these teams hit under 200. It was not a good offensive series. But the Yankees had power, and when two teams can't hit, it just takes the team that can fall into more home runs to win, and that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, I think, 42-28 was the hit, or 26. Cleveland had almost twice as many hits as the Yankees did, but I want to say they had at least 6, or I'm trying to think. Harrison Bader had 3 homers, Judge had 2, Stanton had 2, Rizzo had 1, so that's 5, 6, 7. That's 7 or 8 home runs.
Cabrera had 1, right?
Yeah, so they had at least 8 home runs. The Yankees had 8 home runs in the 5-game ALDS. Cleveland played 7 postseason games. They had 4 home runs total, and 3 in this series. I'm sorry, 2 in the series because Oscar and Jose had 1 each in the wild card round. But a couple of those hits are not even just home runs. If a couple of those hits, instead of being singles or whatever, if some of those are doubles or homers even, we'd be talking about Cleveland going to Houston on Wednesday instead. I think it's just, I'm not saying they don't need Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and all these guys who strike out or hit home runs to be a good team. I think they just needed, 2 or 3 more hits in this series to be extra base hits, whether that's double or home run. They just, some of those singles really just needed to be extra base hits.
Yeah, they, on top of that, it's like, it's the danger of an offense. It's almost based entirely on singles. It's like, they don't walk enough to have another pathway to success. They don't, they don't hit. I mean, yes, Jose Ramirez led the big league in doubles, but it's like, just, listen, OPS is flawed. We know this, but still, you look at the list, it's like guys with OPS is over 600. I'm not even saying 700. I am saying over 600. It's a little over 700 is average. It was Quan, it was Jose, and it was Gabby. Arias. And Rizzo. Or not Rizzo, Rosario.
Yeah, they had one walk here in Game 5. I'm not going to look at the whole walk total for the series, but that's a good point. Not just the power, but it's the patience too. And I guess sometimes those kind of go hand in hand.
Cortes 5 innings, 61 pitches. Like he was averaging under 12 through his first, set. Like they just a lot of. It's almost like you want to have him go up there and be like, okay, you're not allowed to swing at the first pitch. Like, okay,
right.
You can't, you have to take a pitch or two because there's just too, Oscar Gonzalez, this was not his best game, but he had 2 ginormous games in the postseason, even though the stats aren't great. But he's a guy who in 4 at-bats could go up there and conceivably swing at, see 4 total pitches.
Right. 61 pitches for Nestor Cortes in this game on short rest. Like, I have to imagine, I don't know what they get into in terms of hitter meetings before games and whatnot, but I refuse to believe that the hitter meeting didn't say, hey, this guy's on 3 days rest. Let's work him hard. Outside of Game 1 and tonight and Game 5, Games 2, 3, and 4, this team had a good approach at the plate. They had to settle in Game 1. They were behind, and they got out of their offensive game plan against Garrett Cole. Games 2 and 3 and 4, they were a little bit better. They started working counts again. They started getting on base. They started just trying to hit the other way and play their game of small ball. And it's like they just let it go again here in Game 5. Nestor Cortes needed 92 pitches to get through 5 innings in Game 2. That was on normal rest. On 3 days rest, he gets through in 61. And they have 3 hits versus the 6 the first time. And it's all due to approach. I mean, the first inning, right? Quan gets on with a base hit. That's great. Ahmed Rosario, the pop-up bunt, terrible pitch to do it on. And I know people are going to say, well, why did Tito tell him to bunt? He didn't tell him to bunt. Tito says all the time, they don't ever tell guys to bunt. The rule is always get the runner over somehow. It doesn't matter how you do it. Get the runner over in the scoring position. And I don't know if he was bunting for a hit, if it was him trying to sack him over, but it was a bad bunt. Next batter, Jose Ramirez. 2 terrible pitches he swings at. I'm sorry, it was a called strike, the first one. The second one was a pop out on a ball that was, in on his chest. And then Oscar Gonzalez hit a decent liner to third base. That was the end of the inning. And then Jeff, in the 4th inning, 6 pitches against Nestor Cortes. Naylor, a 2-pitch ground out. Gabby Arias, a 1-pitch fly out. Andres Jimenez, a 3-pitch ground out. A 6-pitch inning in the 4th inning. And that allows Cortes to go out there in the 5th to face Austin Hedges, Miles Straw, and Stephen Kwan. And he gets Kwan to line out to right field. It's only a competitive at bat that inning. Just a very poor approach. I will get into it about the pitching, but I think I kind of wonder if the deficit early kind of got in their head and got them out of whack, because Games 2, 3, and 4, their approach was fantastic. It was good, and they were doing the right things they should do. And I feel like in Game 5, they just didn't do what had made them successful.
So you're saying after the hitting coach went to his... I'm kidding.
Oh, someone tweeted that.
No, so fun fact. I went through... I haven't gone through the Yankee side of things, but I was going through Cleveland's, and they had, in four of the games, they had a combined 4 walks. The Game 2 win, they had 5. So they had 9 total walks. And if I go through like New York, in Game 2 had 7 walks alone. And then they had 8 in, I mean, that's the thing. Like yeah, Cleveland out hit them, but New York just, I mean, they might have reached base. I mean, I know Cleveland barely won the reach base wars, as it were. But like when you're going through this whole thing about like how it was, especially those later games in the series, what's the difference? The Yankees walked a lot. So quick math has them at 18 walks, like literally double Cleveland's walks. So Cleveland might have had double the hits, but they had double the walks. And that also means, likely double the pitching or the pitches and getting through guys. I love a lot of guys on the team, but there is that kind of issue where the, Rosario and Jimenez and Oscar Gonzalez, like this is not a team that are patient types. It's like they have in Jose, he, for some reason, after that Colorado injury, it's still the weirdest thing that, even after the rest of the season, he was league average. After that Colorado thing, it's like he became a bit of a hacker in the second half. And I mean, he's fine. And he still played well, and I don't want anyone to sit there and be like, no, he was their best hitter. Okay. There's no doubt he was their best hitter, but he was not the transcendent guy he was a year ago. He wasn't like an MVP hitter in this game. He wasn't, I felt like Jose of like the first part of the season and Jose of most seasons, when those bases are loaded and he comes up, it wouldn't have been a sac fly. Like it just felt like he was, I don't know what got shifted, but it was weird sitting there watching, Arayas, I keep saying Gabby. We'll just call him Gabby. Gabby's at bats and seeing him like, yeah, he ended up striking out, but it's like he would work a count at least. Or I mean, Hedges did not have a great series, but I mean, Hedges made every at bat a battle. Like I give him credit for that.
Yeah, no, they definitely did do that. And you're right. The fourth inning where they did finally, was it the fourth inning where they finally scored? Third inning they scored. It was the sac fly by Jose, and the pitch before the sac fly, he was just a little bit early, and he yanked a ball on the right field line. It could have been a home run. And that felt like the inning for them too, because this is how their offense looked all series when they were doing good. Austin Hedges got a hit, and it's like, okay, Austin Hedges is on base. When Austin Hedges gets on base, you should score, because that's like, the best possible outcome from him is anyway he gets on base is like a giant bonus. And then Quan had that little blooper into the Bermuda Triangle in left field that dropped in front of Donaldson and Oswaldo Cabrera and Aaron Hicks, and ended up getting Aaron Hicks hurt and out of the game. Now he's out for the postseason. And they had to put Marwin Gonzalez in left. And I'm like, this is perfect. That's the rally in game 2, the rally in game 4. That's how it started, was that little fly ball into the Bermuda Triangle in left field. Rosario walked. He walked. That was great. A 4-pitch walk. Cortes looked like he was coming undone a little bit, that the 3 days rest was starting to get to him. And then Jose just misses that home run. And then he has a sac fly, and that was it. And I don't think they had a chance the rest of the game, did they? I mean, the 4th and 5th were dismal.
Well, I mean, the 9th he got 2 hits, right? Miller and May, because that's the thing. I'm like, they're not going to pinch hit Maley even now. And I was just sitting, and then of course he got a hit. It's like,
I know. That would have been the time to pinch hit. I'm like, just do it. Who cares?
Who cares?
And they didn't do it. And I said that. I know that, and I was like, just pinch hit him, because like you should at this point. If you're not doing it, why aren't you going to do it? And then I was like, who cares? If they're dead at this point, didn't matter. Their approach was just so bad. It worked out. Everything worked out perfectly for New York. I mean, the rain let Cortes start. The Guardians had a terrible approach against him. He got through 5 innings, which we said yesterday. Cortes and Peralta would combine for like 5 or 6 somehow. They would go to Loaizaga, they would go to Holmes, and they maybe would go to Garrett Cole. And they didn't. He was warming up at the end of the game. They didn't go to him, but Cortes got them more than they probably thought. Loaizaga was great for 2. They went to Clay Holmes against the top of the order. He struck out 2. He looked great. And the only reason that he was available is because of the rainout yesterday.
Yeah.
And then Wandy Peralta goes the 9th inning. Wandy Peralta pitched all 5 games in the series.
First time that's ever happened.
Yes. It's like he was Andrew Miller. He was like Andrew Miller. And the reason that happened is because he had a day off after game 1. Mm-hmm. He had a day off after game 2. I'm sorry, he didn't have a game after day 2 because of the rain out, but or they did have a game off. Yeah. And the rain out yesterday. And he did have to pitch 3 days in a row, but the rain out yesterday, made it happen. So everything went according to plan with the rain for New York, exactly how he said it would.
And it's hard to beat Cortes twice. They really needed to get one off of Cole. And unfortunately, Cole looked like the Garrett Cole of 3 years ago. He did not look like the guy who was very beatable in the season, Cortes. And then, this was totally like the rain screwing Cleveland, because it's like Cortes wouldn't be available for 5 innings if there isn't rain. There's no way Holmes can pitch. Peralta can't pitch. Loaizinga is probably limited. It just, because of the way that the rain hit, and because Cleveland did not make New York pay in terms of pitch counts, except for Garrett Cole's one game at 110. That's like letting Servino off the hook, even though they beat him. It's like you needed to, in those games, put guys in the ground quick and make them get into their pen, and they didn't. And that pen had no depth, but they also just never were able to quite do enough in terms of pitch count. We should take our first break. We're going to come back. I'm going to talk about, I got to talk about one more thing offensively that annoyed me. We'll get into the pitching all on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. Our sponsor today are our good friends over at Rhone. I'm going to spell it out. One of our listeners asked me to spell these. So it's RHONE. They do, listen, I pointed out last time, I wear shirts like theirs. I'm going to end up picking up a Rhone shirt. Their new commuter shirt is the most comfortable, breathable, flexible shirt known to man, and here's why. Rhone's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your work commute to 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident with a wrinkle-free shirt without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. On top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner. A shirt that is comfortable, breathable, flexible, and is going to help you not stink. How can you not do it? Like I said, I love shirts like this. I'm going to buy a Rhone shirt. I will let you know what I think about it. I think they look pretty fun, pretty cool personally. But if you want to help us out and want to go to a great, fantastic sponsor, go to www.rhone, that's RHONE.com/locked-on. The commuter shirt can get to you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Use the promo code LOCKED-ON to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your order when you head to RHONE.com/locked-on. Use that code LOCKED-ON. And it's easy. It's /locked-on and code LOCKED-ON. It's time to find your corner office comfort. Get in on the Rhone revolution. So, okay, a personal pet peeve of mine all year is Andres Gimenez. And I love him to death, but his insistence on sliding. And I get that he is safe at first base, but first of all, if you look at the math, going foot first in is, I know people are going to be mad. They're like, you listened to the game, you didn't watch it. I don't have to watch it. I saw him dive into first base half a dozen times this year, if not more. When you drop into a foot first slide, that is the slowest way to get into first. Head first is the most dangerous. Running straight through is the way to go. Yes, the call was wrong. Yes, they should have reviewed the call. But if Gimenez runs right through the base, then maybe all of this doesn't happen. I still think that, I don't know why no one has pulled him aside and discussed this with him. Why is he still diving into first base? All the science, all the data says you run through. And if he runs through, he's probably called safe instead of out. Is it his fault? No, because he was safe. Mm-hmm. But could the situation have been avoided? Absolutely. And it's because he keeps doing this one. I love Andres. I say that Gimenez was the MVP of this team this year. It wasn't Jose. He was the best offensive player, start to finish. That being said, can someone this offseason please pull him aside and show him the ESPN Sports Science video? I mean, they do it very simply. I'll share. I've shared the link many times. He literally did the worst thing you can do to get that base. And he continually does this. And maybe people are going to get mad at me, but it's just drop and slide. You slow down. Friction exists. We live in a friction-filled world. Just rub your arm
forward.
Yeah. You are no longer gaining momentum, and drag is slowing you down. So doing that, like I said, I stand that if he had ran all the way through, which you're allowed to do at first, he gets called safe.
Right. I agree. It's a much easier call. And the umpires still have to get that call right. And Cleveland still should challenge that. Cleveland challenged two plays on Sunday in Game 4, both incorrect. The first one was I thought was pretty egregious that Jose was out, and the second one, I think Arias probably had the guy out, but inconclusive to overturn it. So they lost on that one. Yeah,
been kind of weak this postseason. Like I was like, what do you guys? It just felt like, and today, I don't know. It felt like some people said asleep at the wheel. Some people, it's like some people are like, "Are you asleep or are you just already given up?" Like it felt like almost like, "Oh, we've lost."
I know.
Why spend the time?
What inning was that? Was that the
I was like the 7th or the 6th. It was in the second half of the game. I feel like I could be totally wrong in that. But
it was the fourth inning. I think it was. Yeah, it was the fourth inning.
Wasn't even.
And there was already 2 outs. But yeah, I mean, just you have 2 challenges.
It extends.
If the first one is blown, who cares?
And I know the next guy is Hedges, but that still means like extra pitches. It just you're helping get him out of the game sooner. Like it's one more. And Hedges, like yes, Hedges mostly resulted in an out, but Hedges very rarely was like first pitch out. Like he worked counts. It felt like he was, 5, 6 pitches every single time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that was weird, but again, it's just like, and there are people I know who are going to be mad at me because there are people mad on Twitter like he was safe, and I'm like, safe or not, if he keeps doing this, eventually diving into first base is going to get him hurt. Like that's that's what happens, and 2, it's just going to continue resulting in negative outcomes. It's like you are doing something that is always a negative outcome compared to if you did something else. So I don't know why that is still occurring. And anyone who's a longtime listener of the show knows I've been screaming about this since May.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. It's got to stop. We've seen guys get injured doing it before. We've seen, like you said, you shared the sports science article. It doesn't help. It hurts more than it helps. The only time I think it makes sense is if a guy is trying to tag you.
Yeah, no, going into second or third or home, it makes sense. But first, never.
Yeah, it's just, it's frustrating. So, not the big deal, though. Like we said, the hitting was not good. The approach wasn't good. Maybe it didn't matter. Here's my thing with the hitting today. I kind of wonder. I wonder if we're going to get into the pitching here. It sounds like. Yeah. I kind of wonder if the early deficit took them out of their approach, and they kind of. I don't want to say panic because I'm sure they didn't, but I want to say the scoreboard might have dictated some of their emotions and their at-bats and trying to erase the deficit, knowing that the bullpen had to cover 8 2/3 innings after the fiasco. And let me just say this, Jeff. I tweeted earlier that it was incredibly. People did not like this, by the way. Incredibly easy to say the Guardians should have started Shane Bieber now because Savali didn't pitch well, and there's absolutely no way to prove that Shane Bieber wouldn't be better because we're not going to see it. So it makes everybody who says that is going to look smart because they don't have to prove their point. They don't have to prove that it would work. Mm-hmm. I think Cleveland assessed that Bieber on short rest wasn't going to be any better than what they're going to get from Savali, and you can argue that for sure. I know some people will say, well, if they're going to go down, they should go down with their best pitcher, and I don't disagree with that. And I also want to say, just because Nestor Cortes pitched well on short rest doesn't mean that Shane Bieber would have. There's absolutely no guarantee of that. That's not backed by anything. The track record of guys going on short rest isn't good. Coming into Game 5, teams are 7-14 since 2017 with starters on short rest. So the track record isn't good. If they would have went down with Bieber and he didn't pitch well, and I guess you can say, okay, we went down with our best. And would I agree that he's better than Savali? Yes. Would you maybe do a bullpen game over it? Yes. But there's no way to be sure that Bieber would have pitched better than Savali. But I will say, Savali, we know, is a pitcher who relies on command. He had the command of a pitcher that hadn't pitched in 12 days, and that was ultimately a recipe for disaster. I think in hindsight, I would have said bullpen game. I still wouldn't have used Bieber.
Yeah, honestly, so, I pulled out an older article that was from, 2013, and this was over at Bleacher Report. Dan, I want to give credit, Zach D. Reimer, and, he did every pitcher on short rest from 2000 through 2013, which is when the article was written. 22 pitchers, 40 starts. Oh no, this is they actually pitched better in the start after short rest, which was weird, but where's the on short rest, 54 starts, 287 innings. These are aces, right? These are the best pitchers who go on short rest.
Right.
287 innings, ERA 4.8, whip 142, K per 9 8.2, walk per 9 3.5, hit per 9 9.2, home run per 9 1.1, average game score 48, team record 20 and 34. So like again, the data says that because you don't have listen, I love Quantrill. He's a solid starter. I feel like I've been way too mean to him, but you don't have a Quantrill going on short rest, right? You have your aces who go on short rest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nestor Cortes, I was listening to the game on the radio. He had the third best ERA since the 1950s in the history of the Yankees organization. That's who they had on short rest. Cleveland had, if they went there, Shane Bieber, who is the last pitcher to win the pitching triple crown. You know, these are great pitchers, and they have an ERA of nearly 5. So I understand why Cleveland decided not to go with Bieber. I don't know how much it is. I don't think it's apples and oranges to compare what Cortes did because, listen, Cleveland's lineup struggled. Like, there's no way around it. This whole postseason, they as a team have an OPS under 600. Like, it's not an exact science, but that's really bad. Like, that is exceptionally bad for, you know, they got cold at the wrong time. And this team got hot and they got cold throughout the year. And unfortunately, and can I throw out a random thing? How about the fact that, like, Josh Naylor spent most of last season being hurt? Like, how about Jimenez being in the minors last year? Oscar, like, most of these guys haven't played a season this long. I just wonder if there was some natural wear and tear and unused to the length of a full season, if they played more than they've ever played before. And that also comes into effect. I think even if you put Shane Bieber in there, you're still likely to lose if you only get one run. And right. I know your point of view, and I understand, like, maybe they started pressing, but I feel like if you're going to press because you're down 3, then they were probably going to be pressing when they were at 0-0. Like, they were already behind the 8 ball. If that's gonna, I know it's hard, but if you believe in yourself as a team, like, we have seen them during the season look at a 3 spot is nothing. We have seen them come back from that, and it did feel like this postseason was a team that was really pressing. It felt like a lot of young guys in their first postseason on their first massive stage. And then, like I said, I do you think there's any true? I know baseball is a year-round sport anymore, and there's a lot of things going on. But do you think there's any fat chance that some of these? I mean, Naylor, I think definitely fatigue comes into with his recovery and everything else. But do you think anyone else was unused to just the length of this season?
No, I'm sure. Pitching wise, it was probably a bigger deal than it was hitting wise. Like, yeah, for sure, Naylor with his leg was probably an issue. I think position player wise, probably not so much. Pitching, maybe a little bit, but I thought everybody kind of maintained what they did. Like, we didn't say anybody's velocity dip. We didn't, I think Savali even threw 93 at one point today. McKenzie's velocity was fine in that second game. It was just executing. Maybe you can say, like, didn't execute because maybe they were tired, but I think overall it was just they just didn't execute at the right times when they needed to. I don't know if that really had much to do with it. Didn't seem like it anyway. I think they had some flaws exposed. The Yankees did a good job of finding out. Like Andres Jimenez did not have a great postseason.
No.
Slide aside, Jose Ramirez didn't have a fantastic postseason. I mean, he had the home run against the Rays. Had a couple of their RBIs and hits. But there were spots where you needed him to come through, and he didn't. Josh Naylor had a couple of key moments. Oscar Gonzalez obviously had a couple of key moments, but Quan did. I guess, each guy, I think, all had their moment in this series. Everybody chipped in at certain times, but I think they just failed to put it together when they needed to. I think it was I guess there's no point in blaming one guy. It was all offensively. It was everybody just at different times did not come through when they really needed them to.
I think it's a perfect time for us to take our next break, come back in and kind of put a postmortem on this series. So let's take our break right here. And our break is, listen, I always say this, you shouldn't have favorites. I do have favorites, and my favorite sponsor are our good friends over at Built Bar. I currently have, so funny story. I have the Cougar Tail Built Puffs. And I had a student at school who was struggle busting one day and didn't want anything. And I gave him this because it's a protein bar, right? And now he asks me every day for a puff. And I'm like, did you do your work? I mean, I most things I share, but I don't always want to share my Built Bars because they are delicious. They are filling. Pumpkin pie puff right now looks amazing to me with white chocolate. And hey, you got a special deal going on right now. If you spend $65, you get a free Halloween bag. It's got 3 ghosts, says trick or treat on it. If my daughter saw it, she would instantly steal it. That's how cute it is. It's perfect for Halloween. So go to builtbar.com today. When I go there, I use our promo code LOCKED15 because who doesn't want to save 15% on your order? It's the best deal you will find. Toffee almond, that is another favorite in the original blend. That was my favorite of theirs. That's still there. Mud pie bar. I sometimes speak in spoonerisms. Also great. There's so many great flavors. You really can't go wrong. Go to builtbar.com today. Remember to use that promo code LOCKED15. And now we are back to, here's the thing. This team, I know some people are tired of the whole no one believed in us, but this is a team that honestly, I spent all last offseason hearing how they were going to be bad at every stop of the way. It was a fun year. Players, we've been waiting. Like you can go back 2 years. I'm like, Daniel Johnson's going to be in this outfield. We're finally going to have one passable outfielder. Listen, I bought into Daniel. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you.
I did too. I thought at very least platoon.
Yes, 100%. And to see like Stephen Kwan come up and assert himself in a way that honestly no outfielder has done since. Listen, this is gonna
Sizemore, Michael Brantley.
As I say, it's them. And if you want to talk about those who are both traded players, a draft and develop player. Now they are very different players, and I am not comparing them on any level. But the last draft and developed outfielder who stayed here, who was that good, who was a 3-win player, was Manny Ramirez. Mm-hmm. Like that's how long it's been. We've been waiting for this. And hey, Oscar Gonzalez, I don't know if he ended up being a 2-win player, if he got close, but we've been dying for that. Like a 2-win guy would have been a win.
Right.
And Jimenez going from, listen, I talked about how there was some parallels between him and Jose. I did not expect him to play like Jose. We ended up with a second star out of nowhere. I mean, not out of nowhere, but relatively. I mean, he was kind of a forgotten man. And the bullpen I thought was a massive weakness. And I mean, how about Trevor Stephan? We didn't even talk about him today, but it's like what he did against the Yankees. Bullpen is such a strength now. It's kind of ridiculous. This team, I'm just going to sit here and cough because everyone loves it so much. This team was fun to watch. It had a lot of great players. A lot of people stepped up. And I'll just keep saying it. They're younger than any team in AAA, and they have a top 5 farm system, and the talent hasn't even hit yet. They've got, one can make a case that their top 3 prospects are all pitchers. I don't think most will, but if one wanted to sit there and make that argument, I wouldn't go against them. You got Bybee, I'm kidding, but maybe not.
I'm not kidding. I'm with you.
The stuff we discount it because it's smaller in knowledge, but the Shane Bieber comparisons are not fair, but also logical.
It's hard not to draw the parallel. It's hard not to.
Yes. But it's like, I mean, he's, Williams, Espino, Rocchio, and they're all in AA or higher. So this is the thing. It stings right now because, yes, I had a lot of people getting mad. It's like, imagine a deadline where they added Murphy and Drury. Is that enough to get him over the deadline here? Maybe. They needed a little bit more punch. I don't know if that's enough, but they're in a situation where they don't have a ton of holes. They have a great amount of young talent. And if they decide to go get someone, there's not anyone out there who they can't get.
Yeah, if they can find a trade partner that has pieces they're willing to deal. We have a whole offseason to get into this, and I'm sure we will, because I can't wait to do that with you. But yes, you're right. If they have a player they are targeting, they have enough talent to go out and get it if they want to make that. They want to part with some talent to do it.
Yeah. And I want to stick with that. I want to stick with, like, yes, it totally sucks right now, but like the future is very bright no matter how you want to take it. And even it was a fantastic season, look back, and it was a fun year, but it's not a one and done.
I think the hard part for me is, and I should have said this at the open, but I plan my days around 7:05 or 6:10 or whatever time there's a game. If there's a game at 1:00 on Sunday, I plan my day around that. And if there's a 10 o'clock game on the West Coast, I take a nap after work so I can stay up until the end of that. I don't miss many games. If I miss a game, it's because I'm covering a minor league game or I have some family obligation or something I owed my fiance to do that got in the way. So, I could probably count on one hand how many games I didn't see, at least like the bulk of this year, or didn't listen to. So when the season ends, it doesn't just, wind down. It just comes to a screeching halt. And that's the hard part. Although I guess you could argue that it kind of wound down because they played their final 5 games in 9 days because of postseason scheduling, because of rain. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Major League Baseball's manipulative scheduling. I'm tired of the rain. We're tired of the rain in 2022. In 2023, I want less rain. But yeah, that's the hard part. It's just, it ends and my schedule becomes a mess and I feel like I have nothing to look forward to. So I'm glad we'll be doing these in the off season because I'll need to look forward to those things. But also the other part is it's hard to get back. I don't want to get into all this now because I want, this is a little bit of therapy. We want to be positive. It was a good season, but it's hard to get back to the mountain, man. The climb back up the mountain is hard. So anytime you get there, you want to win, you want to go as far as you can. And when it ends before you're ready for it to end, it's hard. So, but we'll get into that part of things as the off season gets going, but
no, definitely. But it's like I said, I feel like I saw so much negativity and I know some people out there, and I get the tendency to want to go there, but I kind of want to just take some more time to celebrate this squad because it was such a fun surprise. Because I thought it would be like, I thought they would be, about a 500 team, but man, even like Naylor was a below 100 a WRC plus guy before his injury. And yeah, the season was a little up and down for him, but there was so many. And then, like I said, we talk about the minors. It's like Tanner Bybee a year ago at this time. We're not even talking about him as a top 30 prospect. It was just across the board, top to bottom. If you follow this team in depth, it was such a fun year.
There's a lot of good developments for sure. Just the standpoint of I didn't have them going 500 because I thought, they had pitching injuries last year and they were extremely healthy this year for the most part. I know Savali got hurt at different points, but for the most part, they were a very healthy team this season. That's hard to repeat, and even so, I thought for sure, health would impact them again somewhere this year, and it would keep them around 500. You could not have convinced me that 17 prospects were going to make their debut and they were going to be this good. I even asked, Rob Cifolio, who's the Guardians director of player development. I'll have an article on that in the coming days over at Guardians Baseball Insider and maybe the News Herald. But I asked him, I said, what would you have said if I told you in March that there were going to be 17 rookies making their debut? And how would you have, what questions would you have asked me about how the season went? He said, well, I guess I would have asked you how many COVID cases we had, which thankfully not too many. And second, he would have really wanted to know, how did we do? How did the season end up? And I don't think anybody would have said, yeah, you're going to the game 5 of the ALDS against the Yankees and you're going to have a shot to go to the ALCS. Like nobody was predicting that. If you were just, had rose colored glasses on.
Hiram. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. With Yu Chang hitting 30 bombs in the middle of the order.
Yeah. No, not 30. He hit 62
40.
in that. Right. He was judge. Thank you for listening, Hiram. I like to tease with you.
Yes.
But, at the same time, I think, you're talking about that. It's funny to think back and like the big COVID case wasn't even the players. It was the coaches. Remember when we had the games canceled because it was the coaching staff.
That's right.
It's been such a long year when you said that. It's like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten that happened. But yeah, it's
like
to go back.
Tanner Tully and Kirk McCarty to get up here.
And again, and here's the thing, like Kirk McCarty ended up sticking around, had some nice moments. Tanner Tully is like the ultimate organizational soldier. Like I kind of liked that he got I like that he got opportunities. Like he's never going to stick in the big leagues. And I'm sure even he kind of knows what he is, but he's that guy that he goes up and down, whatever he's needed. The minute he retires, I feel like he's going to have a coaching job in the system. He can join Brad Goldberg as Ohio State pitchers that are in the system as coaches. And I think he'll be great in that role. But it was great to see him get that opportunity because he is literally that guy who in one calendar year will pitch at like 4 different levels, filling whatever need. So I know people are out there like, why are you talking about Tanner Tully? Oh, we're talking about the whole season. And he's someone who, just the perfect definition of an organizational soldier. So it was good to see. And like I said, that was just a reward for that guy. And, You go back and you think about Bobby Bradley at the start of the year on this roster and some of the other choices before, Oscar got his opportunity, before back when Stephen Kwan was a platoon player, things like that. And just how much
for a while, Jimenez platooned. Yeah.
I mean, you go into next year, it's like second base set, shortstop. We'll see. I feel set. I don't know.
Left field set.
Third base, obviously set. One at first base or DH set. Center field, I think, is still set. I mean, he's got a contract for 5 years, and
most of your bullpen set.
Yeah, your starting rotation potentially set. If not,
at the very worst, you're going to upgrade the rotation. If not, you're bringing what guys back? Yeah.
Oscar Gonzalez either outfield or DH until he proves otherwise. It's like you need one more bat.
Speaking of, do you want this final stat to depress you or anybody? Joe Sheehan, formerly Baseball Prospectus, and now he does the Joe Sheehan Baseball Newsletter. But Guardians played 7 playoff games, scored 17 runs. They had a 269 OBP. They struck out. Their strikeout rate did go up in the postseason. Their walk rate fell. Not a shock. We know this. But he said we want long sequence offense to work, getting hits and stringing hits together. And he says it doesn't work, not in October. I disagree. I think it can work, but I think you need balance. I think they needed – the one thing they were missing was Franmil Reyes, and not the Franmil Reyes that played for Cleveland this year. They were missing the Franmil Reyes they thought they were going to have. You get that bat, I think that changes everything. Agreed.
I mean, imagine if all of a sudden you have a 35 home run threat hitting 4, Naylor 5, pushing everyone else down. It's just a different team. It's so totally different. And that's I mean, the Franmil situation, that's the other crazy thing. You get down to it's like heading into this year, there were 2 hitters I thought we could count on to have, be above league average, was Jose and Franmil just imploded. And now we go back and it's like, okay, they basically need to find a new Franmil. Like that's kind of, they got that one open spot who's outfielder /DH /first baseman, depending on how you want to shift the other guys. It's like, that's what they need to find Franmil. Can they find Franmil?
Yep. That's the challenge. I think that's, besides maybe upgrading a starting pitching spot and I guess catcher we can talk about too, but just, upgrade maybe one spot in your rotation and get one more bat somewhere. And I think you're right back in the thick of things next year. You can't rest on this because, I said, it's going to be hard. It's always easier being the hunter than the hunted. And next year they will be the hunted. So, they're going to have to go through the uphill climb to get back, but they're not far off from coming. They weren't far off from winning the series to begin with, but they're going to have to improve to get past this hump next year. And they don't have to improve a ton to do it. They just have to do it the right way.
Yeah, and the one nice thing, is just kind of from my end, a final thought before I kick it to you. Even if they do have some more injuries last year, yes, this team was unnaturally healthy. All of that depth they've built up in the minors, and they're kind of how they've been willing to bring up and let guys play. The one nice thing is yes, it hurts if you lose a starter. It hurts if you lose an everyday player. But let's say someone like Josh Naylor gets hurt next year and misses a month, heaven forfend, you have Nolan Jones. If one of these pitchers goes down, you got Logan Allen, maybe a Daniel Espino who you have to add at the end of next year to your I will argue that they are in such a better position as opposed to 2021 when you had to put Henches from AA to the rotation, Mejia from high A. They are in a position where that depth in the minors is actually going to help support the major league team because there will be more injuries, but because the health of this year was just unsustainable. But at the same time, it's that's part of why you got to be excited. Like I said, it's painful now, but the thing to help you get through it is Austin Hedges is your only free agent. And the youth is just sitting there ready to help. And if they can figure out ways to help compile some of this talent, it should be an even more fun year next year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like I said, it's just painful because it's over. I don't like when things end. This is why I always tell people I like covering prospects because when a guy like Stephen Kwan or somebody else gets the majors and they do good and they're moving on, and I always like to go back and try to find the next prospect and try to figure that out because there is no end. It's an infinite loop and you don't have to worry about the end because the future is always unknown. I like when the future is unknown because the possibilities are endless. And I hate the end, even though this is the end of today's podcast. We'll be back with more. And I'm looking forward to doing this over the off season with you as therapy and things to look forward to.
Yep. We can definitely help showcase each other's talent.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you to everyone who listened. Remember to rate and review daily. Even though it's the off season, as you can tell, we're going to have fun on this. And if you want like prospect talk, we're going to go deep on that. Just
we're going to get nerdy. We're going to get real nerdy.
It's going to be, and if you have not subscribed on YouTube, we're at almost 700, maybe almost 800. We're at something 75. So please go subscribe on the YouTube. It is a big help for us. The numbers have been the best they have ever been, which postseason helps. The addition of Justin obviously helps as well. But thank you to everyone who continues to support the show. I've always made a big deal about the fact that like we are fighting to be one of the top podcasts. We've stayed in the top 30 on iTunes for baseball podcasts for like 3 weeks in a row. So that's huge. Thank you to every one of you listening out there. And how we end every show, go Guardians, go.